Hello, N4HNH here with the Yaesu FTdx10. Well, the radio is down here, but it's going to be easier for you to see if I use the external monitor for this particular video. So we're going to be going into the menu system and adjusting transmit audio because I want you to, be able to get on the air and sound good, early on in your experience with the radio. There are many, many more videos in the series that you can watch, but they're going to get into, some details regarding noise, dealing with noise and pulling out weak signals and selectivity and all other sorts of things. But let's get you on the air with some good audio. Now, the settings I'm going to show you are the ones that I use for my voice. And so, you can't just say my settings are going to work for you. Although I have had many people tell me that they plugged these settings in and then got great audio reports and didn't even tweak it any. But I would say, depending on your voice, you may need to tweak it a little bit. I'll give you a little insight into that. So we're going to be dealing with the Yaesu hand mic that comes with the radio. That's the SSM75E. I don't know if you can read that, but anyway, it's the SSM75E. I've got it a little bit dimmed down in here so you can see that screen better. But the hand mic, okay? Now, those of you who are Patreon support members, if you're a part of the Patreon support team, if you're an executive or a VIP, I have a detailed document. It's called the N4HNH menu customizations document for the FTdx10. So that you could go through and, in more detail. I cover everything in the menu that I change, and I cover even all the knobs and buttons and how I use them. And so those of you who are an executive or a VIP Patreon team member should take advantage of that. What I'm going to, and I even have other microphones covered in there. Yeah, some of the Heil headsets, an Electro Voice. So this video is just going to deal with the stock mic that comes with the radio. Okay, so the first thing I do is I'm going to be pressing the multi knob down here, the function knob. You can't see it because I'm on the radio. I do have a request into Yaesu to be able to right click maybe up in here and have it automatically, like right along in here, and have it automatically bring up the function menu. But we'll see. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. But the very first thing I would have you do is go to the radio setting option here, lower left. Mode SSB, bring your menu, see how it works. I'm using the mouse, but you could do that with, by using your fingers and touch screen it on the radio itself now, not on the external display. And then you use the multi-knob to change values. So right here, TX BPF select. Now you'll notice that is not yellow. Let me show you something. The default is 100 to 2900. I don't use that with the hand mic. Why? Well, for one thing, I have listened to recordings of myself with the settings I'm going to show you, and I like them. I've gotten very, very good feedback from people who know me personally, know my voice, that it sounds better here at 300 to 2700. Now let's talk about that. 100 to 2900 is a 2.8 kilohertz bandwidth, and that's okay. Don't get me wrong. But if you watch my video called Power Spectral Density, and then it says and a question mark, like what in the world is that? You'll understand why more narrow is better. Now you don't want to get carried away with it, and here's what I mean. You can go to 400 to 2600. That's going to pinch your transmit audio up. Now that's good for breaking a DX pileup, okay? That's why that's in there. But to me, the happy medium is 300 to 2700. That's a 2.4 kilohertz bandwidth, where 400 to 2600, if you do the math on that, that's a 2.2 kilohertz bandwidth. So I have found that the sweet spot with the Yaesu stock mic is 300 to 2700. Now, again, watch that video on power spectral density and you'll understand more details about why I would consider that. Hint, hint, you don't want to go too wide because it's going to be less efficient. Your transmit power will be less efficient if you're too wide. All right, now 200 to 2800, let me mention that one. With Heil microphones, I do use that setting. I still don't use the 1 to 2900. I don't want to waste power at frequencies that aren't really necessary. Giving you a little more of a hint about the power spectral density discussion. But for high microphones, I use a 200 to 2800. For the Yaesu stock mics, I use 300 to 2700. And let me just go ahead and throw this out there that the settings I'm going to show you in this video will also work with an M70 desk mic. Now, if you're thinking about going out there and spending big bucks on Yaesu's other desk mics that cost $400 and $500, you're wasting money if you buy those. They're not necessary. You've got more than enough equalization capability inside the radio. You don't need those fancy microphones unless you just want to buy it for bragging rights. The M70 pairs up very nicely with this radio using the settings that I'm going to show you in this video. One of my VIP Patreon members has the M70 and an FTdx10, and he has some of the best transmit audio I have ever heard, bar none. It's just amazing. Okay, so that's all you're going to do in this menu. Again, you're in radio setting, mode SSB, transmit BPF select. That's transmit bandpass filter select. So in other words, what this is going to do is it's going to limit your transmit bandwidth to being between 300 and 2700 hertz or a 2.4 kilohertz bandwidth. It's a really good happy medium if you say, hey, listen, I just like one setting and use it for everything, whether I'm rag chewing or DX chasing. This is the one. All right, and now I'm going to click back, and we will go to operation setting and under TX audio, see TX audio. Now let me go back up to the top. So the first thing you're going to see is your automatic mic gain control release time. Leave that on the default of mid, okay? We'll talk about the automatic mic gain control at the end of this video. So Parametric Eq1. So if you're not familiar with the audio world, I work in the audio world, so I'm very accustomed to parametric EQs. So what you do is you set the frequency that you want to center up on in effect. Then you set a level. How much of that frequency do you want to boost or cut, by the way? See, what's this? You can cut it by 10 dB as well. Notice the default is a boost of, where was it? There we go, 5. Well, for my voice, now let me explain this. This is the frequency that's going to deal with the low frequency content of your voice. So if you've got a super deep voice, you might want to stay with 5. If you don't have a super deep voice, maybe 8. For me, it worked out that 10 worked. All right, now the bandwidth. Let's talk about bandwidth. It's very confusing that they call that bandwidth because the proper term for this is Q. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's a quality factor assigned to filters. In this case, 10 does not mean the bandwidth is wide. 10 means the bandwidth is the most narrow it can go. See, look here. There's nothing past 10. So in other words, here's what you're saying. With a filter quality of 10, on a scale of 1 to 10 being the best, that filter is going to affect the least amount of spectrum, audio spectrum, on each side of 300 hertz. So think of it this way. I'm really drilling down to 300 hertz. I'm going to boost 300 hertz by 10 dB. I really don't want to boost, 100 hertz or 500 hertz. I really want to focus down on 300 hertz. So 10 is going to give me the most narrow filter to do that with, whereas 1 would have affected 300 hertz and a lot of the spectrum above and below 300 hertz. We really want to focus in on 300 hertz. Now, I will mention, since we set the transmit bandpass filter at 300 to 2700, it's not a brick wall. There's a little bit of a slope there. So, we're sloping off at 300 and we're boosting 300, you see. So we're really not interested in much below 300 hertz because honestly, it's a bit wasted unless you're wanting to sound like an FM broadcaster, and this is two-way radio. You need to have your audio be punchy so people can hear you through pileups, so people can hear you in a noisy under noisy band conditions. So if I were to put this on 10 or 1, I would be affecting a wide range of frequencies centered up on 300 hertz, okay? So there we go. And some might argue, well, look, if you're putting the level on 10 and the bandwidth on 10, I mean, you're just maxing everything out. True, I am. There are 3 of these filters that we can assign. We're about to do filter number 2. And you could say, well, if you put them all on 10, a level of 10, then you may as well just, boost the mic gain. But it still does leave alone some of those frequencies that are between these. For example, I'm using a bandwidth here of 10. I'm using a very narrow Q, a high Q, high quality, narrow filter. All right, let's do the next set. And this is something that differs with various brands. This middle point is the most critical to me from a standpoint of intelligibility. And it varies according to microphone brand. I'll just tell you, the high-O mics I cover in the PDFs and the Electro Voice mics, there are different mid frequencies that you affect change to. With the Yaesu mics, everyone I've tested, 1300 hertz is the sweet spot. Now, again, that's my voice. Somebody else might find that 1200 works better for them. But this gets you very, very close. And again, I've had numerous people tell me, nah, man, the settings that you put out work for me without any tweaking. So we'll see. Try it with your voice and then see how it sounds. Parametric EQ level, again, we're going to max that out at 10 dB. But this time, the width is going to be 2. In other words, it's going to be a low Q, a wide filter. Let's talk about on this one. See, the default is a narrow filter. So that's Yaesu's default. That's what Yaesu thinks. Okay, but I found in my testing that affecting 1300 hertz, which is also not a default, you see, affecting 1300 hertz and a lot of the frequencies above and below it help really bolster that mid-range in your voice and help with punch. So 1300 hertz, 10, and 2. And then finally, the third EQ we have available, and this one is going to deal with the higher frequencies in your voice. We're going to set that on 2400 hertz. Again, that's a sweet spot. And by the way, I have found that one works with Yaesu and Hi-O mics. Now, certain person's voice might do better with 2300. Somebody else might do better with 2500. But you see what I'm saying? We're getting you right there in the ballpark. Yet many people report that my settings work for their voice without any tweaking. But consider possibly plus or minus 100 hertz on the mid, the 1300, as well as the high, the 2400. And again, we're going to boost that maximum. And we're going to set the bandwidth to 1. So we're going to affect a lot of frequencies either side of 2400 hertz as well. Because, well, let me just explain. These EQ settings here are for when you are not using the speech processor. Now, I'm just going to level with you. I always use the speech processor. But when I'm not using the speech processor, I needed a little bit more sizzle in the high end. So I went ahead and opened that filter wide, which is 1. Remember, 10 is narrow, 1 is wide. And I boosted it all the way up. Now, again, with using some narrow filtering as well, even though you're putting all these levels on 10, it still doesn't equal turning the mic gain up with everything on 0, okay? Don't get the wrong impression there. I've heard people say that. All right, now let's go to the next set. So there's another set of EQs that look just like those, but notice the difference. PRM-TRC, Parametric EQ3 bandwidth. But then it starts a new set. See, look at this, EQ1, but they have a letter P in front of them. That's for when you're using the speech processor. So that P stands for processor. So P, Parametric EQ frequency. Again, we're going to go with 300 hertz. That's different when I'm doing a Hi-O mic. Again, that's covered in the menu optimizations PDF that is available for executive and VIP Patreons. But 300 hertz, again. Now, the P parametric level, we're going to go with, again, a boost of 10. But this time, notice up here with no processor, we were boosting 300 hertz at 10, but with a bandwidth of 10. So we were very narrowly boosting 300 hertz. What we're basically doing is we're trying to make sure that hand mic, without any help from a speech processor, can punch. All right, but now down here at the P parametric, processor parametric EQ, and by the way, how do you determine which one of those you're going to use? If you enable the processor, it automatically switches to this EQ. It ignores the other one. So these are not used if you have the speech processor turned on, just to be clear. So 310 and 2. So we're going to widen that out. We're going to affect a broader range of frequencies at 300 hertz because we're going to have a speech processor helping us out. Now look at this. In the mids, we're doing the same thing again, 1300 hertz, level 2, bandwidth 2. So that's exactly the same even if we were not running the processor. And here we are at 2400 hertz again, and we're doing level 10, but look at the bandwidth, 1. Now let's compare that to, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I used 1 both times. So I'm really opening that up, and you notice that's a Yaesu recommendation. If it's in yellow, it's a Yaesu recommendation, it's the default. So yeah, so 2410 and 1, the same as without the processor. So the main difference is really in the low frequency here. Without the processor, I'm boosting at 10, 300 hertz boosting at 10, and I'm narrowly boosting it. But with the processor, I am boosting 300 hertz, there we go, at 10, but I'm widening that out a little bit. I'm boosting a broader range of frequencies each side of 300 hertz. All right, so there you have it, the EQ settings. Now, there's other things you have to do, so let me back all out of this. I go through these and set these first. And again, you can get a friend on the air. Let me mention something. You can plug a headphone into the radio and turn the monitor function up. This right here, I'm running the monitor level at 45. Now, you need that with CW anyway, but with sideband, you don't want to turn this on unless you are, now what that does is that if you look up here at the top right of the screen, now my function knob is adjusting monitor level, see? You don't want to turn that monitor on if you're using a speaker, okay? Use that when you're using headphones. Now, you can put some headphones on and turn that monitor level up. Like I said, I've got it set on 45. And you could, whatever you need to be able to hear. And then you can listen to yourself. But let me warn you about something. You are hearing what you're saying. You can get close. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you don't do that. In fact, I encourage you to do it. But, or just trust my settings and get on the air and see how people, what people say about your audio. But you can listen to yourself through the headphones. The problem is you're hearing what you sound like after the equalization, but you're not hearing what you sound like after your voice has been modulated via sideband, single sideband, or AM, by the way. These same EQs work both ways. Because remember, AM is just both sidebands and a carrier. So if you listen through the headphones, you're getting close, but you're not going to hear an exact representation of what you sound like after your voice has been modulated and demodulated on the other end. So it's a good idea to get a friend on the air with you and have that friend listen, and yeah, you sound like you're yourself, that sort of a scenario. Now, let's go back and let's take a look here at mic gain, and you want to make sure mic EQ is on. None of those settings we just made in the menu will matter if this is not on. So always make sure mic EQ is on. Notice that I've got the processor level at 17, mic gain at 35. Now again, that's for my voice. I'm going to show you in a minute how to tweak that for you. And I've got the AMC level at 65. Don't ever run that above 65. Just don't do it. The default is 50, by the way. But I found for me, 65 worked well. For other people, sometimes 55 or 60 work well. But somewhere in that 50 to 65 range, don't exceed 65. And so let me show you how you determine where to set mic gain. Notice my meter right now is on SWR. I leave it there because I want to instantaneously know if I've got a problem with my antenna. But I'm going to tap or click here with the mouse, and I'm going to switch it to ALC. And what you want to do is you want to be able to talk normally and see that meter come right up near that where it changes from white to blue. I'm transmitting into a dummy load. And so watch that ALC meter. Oh, see, there's what happens if you got monitor turned on. I had headphones on a while ago, so watch this. I got to turn the monitor level down. Don't want that feedback. All right. There was a prime example of what I was talking about a while ago. Be sure that that's only on for CW. And by default, it will be on for CW unless you change it. So now, what's that ALC meter? N4, H, and H. 1, 2, 1, 2, N4, H, and H. That's a good level for the ALC. If you're looking up there at the S meter, although that's not related, but it's going to about 9, and that's good. You want to keep it right below that line right there. N4, H, and H testing. Now, if you, I've got the processor turned on. Let me show you another thing. I'm going to turn the processor off. And that's how you turn it on and off, by the way. You just lower the level. It's not like a toggle on-off. N4H&H, testing 1, 2, 1, 2. You'll see now that the level's just a little bit lower. That's to be expected because that's what a speech processor does for you. It helps hold your average power output, because remember in sideband, the power output is determined by your voice. So that's going to boost that a little bit and give you an overall, in fact, some people anecdotally say it's about, the equivalent of a 3 dB boost in power. It's just because the speech processor is helping hold your average power that's from your voice inflections up at a higher level. N4H&H, N4H&H. So if I were going to run without the processor, I would go in and turn the mic gain up. All right, so I told you earlier, I never run without the processor anyway. Here's the trick on a processor, because you'll hear people say, man, are you running a processor? Turn that thing off, you sound terrible. Well, that means you got your processor set incorrectly. If you set your processor correctly, you should sound like you're running maybe an amplifier, but not like you're running a processor. If somebody can tell that you're running a processor, you probably got it set too high. So I'm going to go ahead now and enable the processor, and I'll show you my sweet spot is 17. Now that, again, that's for my voice. I would recommend never go above 20. 20 you can tell there's a processor on. But if you're trying to break a pile up, consider 20. But the sweet spot for me is 17, and I may run it at 15 for rag chew, just casual conversation. I may go ahead and do 15. So, but 17, again, remember I like those happy mediums, running 300 to 2700 on the bandpass filter for transmit. And 17 is kind of a nice little blend between rag chew and maybe trying to bust a pile up. What does that tell you? I'm looking for something that's a good all around, and I'm not going to have to be going in there and messing with menus, whether I'm chasing or DX or whether I'm in a rag chew. I'm just looking for a happy medium there. Now let's watch that ALC meter. N4H&H, N4H&H. But my mic gain, let me get my mic gain back. So again, for my voice, I close talk the mic. You might be better off with a mic gain level of 40 or 45, okay? Just watch your ALC meter. N4H&H, 1, 2, 1, 2. See, there we are. Nice. Even though the S9 is not what we're looking for, but that's a good place to be if you want to look at the S meter scale, even though ALC is what we're really looking at. All right, now I'm going to show you a way to check the processor level. And again, you just tap the meter and you go to COMP, because let me tell you what missed it. Let me tell you what a processor is doing. It acts like a compressor does in the music industry. In other words, what it says, okay, you tell me the maximum level you'd like to stay at, and whether you talk loud or softer, I'm going to try to hold it there. And guitars use compressors, bass guitars, electric guitars. They're even used with vocals. So the idea is the compressor means I'm going to let you reach a certain level, and then I'm gonna compress it. I'm gonna hold it there. Watch that comp screen up there, and what you want to be at is about 10 dB of compression. So we want to be somewhere along in there, okay? And honestly, if you're bouncing along around a little below 10 and once in a while a little above 10, that's fine. Here we go. N4H&H testing. Now I'm holding, let me put the mic where I should. N4H&H testing. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. About 2 to 3 inches from your mouth. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, hello. Some people will say put it about 2 to 3, finger widths. Now I can just tell you right now, running up, hello, 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 hello. That's a little hot. So I'm going to go in to the processor level, because honestly, I normally run the 17 with my Heil mic. Now let's see what that does. N4H&H, hello, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, hello, hello. So with this hand mic, 15 is better. So you see what I mean? You don't want people to think you're running a processor. You just want them to think maybe you're running an amplifier that you've boosted by 3 dB by doubling your power from 100 to 200 watts. So yeah, it looks like yeah, that's about right. We can deal with that. You talk in a normal voice and you're hovering a little above or below the 10. All right. By the way, that's not super critical, but you saw what I'm doing there. You want to just hover. You want to be able to peak a little above 10 and maybe sometimes below 10. It'll fall a little below 10. So that's how you do it. Again, don't forget, I speak boldly, loudly into my mic, and I tend to close talk my mic. So I run the mic gain at 35. Some of my viewers have reported that they needed to run the mic gain at 45. So check that by looking at both ALC, okay, N4H&H testing, and also looking at the comp N4H&H testing, 1 2 1 2 1 2, and see where you land. But the mic gain is going to have a lot to do with that. So rule of thumb is put the AMC on 65. I would recommend 60 starting out. Again, for me, 65 worked. And again, that's a setting I think I've been using with the Heil. So let me see what 60 looks like. N4H&H testing. N4. No, I'm going to go back to 65. Okay, so do a processor at 15 with the Yaesu mic. Make sure mic EQ is on, AMC level. Try 60, but if nothing else, try 65 like I've got. This right here is going to be the critical thing to watch when you're adjusting your ALC. N4H&H, hello, 1 2 1 2, and that's where you want to end up. And that AMC is helping also with that. So it's a little bit of a balancing act between all of those. All right, well, I hope you found the video helpful and informative. This should get you on the air with some decent audio. Don't forget, these are my settings, but they really should get you close. You might maybe mess with the low frequency, that 300 hertz. You maybe, if you got a deep voice, don't boost it all as high as 10. Drop it to maybe 6 or 7. Then also, just be considerate of, how close you talk into the microphone, about 3 finger widths back, and try to be consistent, by the way, in how you hold the microphone. If you're a person that says, yeah, I'll do that, and then the next thing you know, you find yourself with your lips touching the mic, probably want to run the lower mic gain. But that's the thing to do, is to watch that ALC and make sure you get that mic gain set for your voice. That's the biggest variable in here. I would say, well, 2 biggest variables in this settings I'm giving you are mic gain and that 300 hertz, whether you're boosting it at 10, boosting it at 7, boosting it at 5, which is the default. Those are the 2 things that'll make probably a little bit more difference as far as everybody's varying types of voices. And remember, the 1300 hertz and the 2400 hertz, maybe try plus or minus 100 hertz with your voice and see if it makes any difference. Again, best way to do that is get a friend on the air that you know and that knows your voice. Now, you could also have them record you. I've done this before. Modern phones do a really good job. Have your friend record you and send you the file. So you can just listen to it yourself. That way you're listening to what you sound like after you've modulated a single sideband signal, and after it's been demodulated on the other end and put out on a speaker. That's, to me, the ultimate way to test your audio. Some people will get on and record themselves with one of those web SDRs, but I got to tell you the truth on that. They tend to not be a very accurate representation of your transmit audio. It tends to be a very anemic sounding audio to my ear when I've recorded with those. So I still think the best is to have a friend on the air, record you, send you the file. Okay, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. It's important to get this information out there to you as soon as possible during your experience with the FTdx10, so you can get on the air and sound good, and then you can learn the rest as you go. So I want to thank the Patreon support team who bring these videos. Without them, I wouldn't be able to afford to do this. So they are a huge part of the fact that you found this video. The reason it's there. I have a backup team through the Patreon support program. And if you would like to join that team and help out each month to keep these videos coming, go to www.patreon.com/N4HNH. That's patreon.com/N4HNH. There are 3 levels of participation. Small donation each month helps keep these videos coming, and literally without them, I'd have to quit. So I do appreciate all of you who can and will participate in that program. And if you would also, please do me a favor and like the video. Click that thumbs up button. That helps us out with YouTube. Consider subscribing to the channel. If you do subscribe, be sure to click that notification bell and you'll be notified when I upload the next video. And finally, hey, do me a favor and share the video link with a friend, you know, on social media, email, or text message, or just tell them about it. I would appreciate that very much. So, hey, thanks again for watching. I hope you did get a lot of help out of this video, and I hope you have fun with your FTdx10. 73 from N4HNH.